So she said she played the same song for so long growing up that the musicians would get bored, and to keep them from falling asleep, they would just find other ways to get to the same place, because otherwise they were bored to tears because they repeated it so many times. And I thought, oh, okay. So I never thought about that, but that's, that created such a beautiful variety and diversity in your playing. And that's something that the Lord that we're working on. So, hearing the way that you get there, it's great because it anchors me, but it also pushes me. Like, okay, all right, okay, I hear that note, and it's not in the chord I'm playing, so I better find something else. So we bear with one another. I love the fact that this is a church who trains and who makes room for people to grow. I love this little area over here called Raise the Praise. I love this area. I understand it's difficult sometimes when we are in the midst of singing over there and you're hearing, I know, and you kind of have to tune your ear off to it, which is difficult. I know. But I am so glad for that area because you're teaching those children that it's fun to worship. You are actually putting something in their hands to help them worship. I loved when your boy would come up and he would stand and with his little guitar. How sweet is that? And the fact that Jeremy is now playing drums, which the other week, did you notice he wasn't just, he's working on his rhythms and his tempos and all that, but he went with us in the spirit. Because there were times when you could it wasn't just a crescendo. You understand there's a difference between crescendoing in music and crescendoing in the spirit. There's a difference. There were some crescendos in the spirit, and Jeremy came right with us. So and I haven't gotten to talk to him about that. I looked to do that because he was sensing that. And that's not just playing. That is heart. That is spirit. And he's catching that when he's that young. Thank God. Because the next generation has to go beyond us. Just has to. So we better get ready and train them, give them, dump everything we know, everything they can receive from us. Let's give it to them free of charge. And then let them go. So I love that about this place. I love how you're great with him in those moments, like literally giving him the beat with every body part you can. That's right, but it's awesome. And, I appreciate the heart that is in that because that matters. I believe that pleases the Lord. I really do. And I appreciate that because that is progression as a team. Because if we were the only ones involved and we have no growth, we have no younger ones, that's going to be a problem. We are going to age with ourselves, and we will date ourselves. And the thing about the Lord is he is always current. So we need to stay current with him. So progression as a team, we're going to our next place, benefits the congregation. So progression as individuals is first off our relationship with him. And the progression as individuals benefits the progression as a team. Coming into community with one another, bearing with one another, provoking one another to good works, calling those things out of one another that we know are in there at the Lord's prompting. And then progression as a team benefits the congregation. Worship has a progression. And I remember, bless you, Shirley, I remember one day I was leading worship and I think Tilly was, I was sitting in worship and I think Tilly was leading. And it was just one of those mornings that you knew there was a breakthrough, but it wasn't happening. Those moments where it's like brick wall time. And it's like, what is going on? And, who knows? I mean, that can be for a gamut of reasons. We don't always see into what is veiled, in the spirit. But I was sitting there, and the Lord showed me a picture of this series of doors, like one door after another and one door after another. And I was here, and he said, you have to break through this first door if you're going to make it to the next door. There. because worship is a progression. Breakthrough has progression. And there are times that if you don't make it past that first breakthrough, it's kind of like flat the whole way through, because you can't break through second, third, fourth, fifth door when the first door isn't broken through. And this isn't at all to limit the Lord, because he can, of course, do whatever. But, with praise, I read in a book one time, praise until the spirit of worship comes, worship until the glory comes, and then stand in his glory. And I thought, wow, I can get that principle. To say it again, it's praise until the spirit of worship comes, worship until the glory comes, and then stand in the glory. And this can happen in so many different ways. I remember there was one time, and I'm telling you, this is such a classroom for me. I have so many lessons that the Lord has brought to me from being here. And one of those lessons was a morning, and this was several years ago. Pastor Vernon was presiding, and we had done, I wasn't on the team. Y'all had done your call to worship, and then it was announcement time. So he was coming up to do that, and all of a sudden it was like this, whoa, something's going on here. And it was such a brief moment, but he caught it. And that was a morning, I think you were leading that morning, Sherry. And we ended up for 45 minutes, basically, we sang one known song, and that was the call to worship song. In 45 minutes. I don't know if you remember that morning or not. It was amazing. And in fact, I don't think I've ever seen it anywhere else, where for that long we stayed in spontaneous worship, and it wasn't like, I couldn't see people behind me. I'm sure that there were some people that were like, okay, let's move on. But there was really a sense of engagement from people's spirits, or else you can't sustain that for that long. It just can't happen when you have most everyone not engaging their hearts. But it was like, whoa. So it wasn't like we had to sing 3 fast songs till the spirit of worship came. You understand? There's some principle in that, but he is not a formulaic God. So we can't box him in like that. And that was one of those days that was just one of those unusual times that, wow, okay, we just slid right through. But it was like, let's just hang, and we hung out there, and it was awesome. It was just amazing in that time. So you just never know. That's why we have to really cultivate sensitivity to the Holy Spirit so that we can catch those times, because they're really easy to bypass. They are really easy to miss, because he is not, I don't know about your experience with him, but sometimes he's just very subtle with me, and just, he's not like, now! It's like, there's a sensitivity in him. That's why it can be grieved, because there's a sensitivity in him. So our sensitivity has to grow towards him. So, and I noticed there's a couple weeks ago, Diane, you and I were leading. And bless your heart, because I was kind of copping out that day. And you stepped in and led. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I led a couple, but I was kind of deferring. She's like, yeah. Thanks. Appreciate that. Really, the Lord and I are in process over that. Because there's no safer place for me than here. So it's kind of funny that this is a place where I really struggle. But that time of worship, it was kind of like one of those, we had moments where it's like, ooh, there's a little something here, because that was the day that Jeremy was flowing with us, and when there was a spiritual crescendo, he was moving. I think you were out that day, maybe. But yet, at the same time, we had moments, but yet it just didn't feel like there was still a flatness to it, And I was one of the leaders, so I can say that. And for some reason, there was still just a flatness. And, one thing I'm learning is when I'm not wholehearted in what I'm doing, he's not wholehearted either. Like, he wants to meet me in my wholeheartedness, And so anyways, that's another message that is still being worked, and someday will be